In the new JJK episode, you may have noticed that Jinichi took his time before attacking Maki, rather than rushing to her as quickly as possible like in the manga. A lot of people dismissed this simply as Mappa wanting him to aura farm, but I wanted to come up with a reasonable explanation, so here are all of the reasons that me and my comment section could come up with, ranked by how likely they are. First of all were the reasons that Mappa would make this creative decision that don't have anything to do with the lore of JJK. These include the fact that Mappa may have wanted to build tension before Jinichi's big moment, make him seem cool and nonchalant like Toji, or, most likely, allow for Ranta to finish his speech before Jinichi started attacking. In the form of manga, this speech would just happen instantly, but the same can't be said for anime, where something needs to be happening on screen while a character gives a monologue. Secondly, we have a couple reasons that are mostly just a joke. Jinichi could have just been aura farming. Maybe he was a prideful man who wanted to seem cool in front of his younger relative, or maybe he wanted to show Maki, a woman he looks down on, that he isn't afraid of her. There's also a theory that Jinichi somehow read the manga, knew he was gonna die, and chose to aura farm before he got completely embarrassed. We now move on to the explanations that link to his relationship with Ranta. Ranta is Jinichi's younger relative and uses the curse technique Paralyzing Gaze. This envelops anyone he gazes upon in an immobilizing aura, preventing their movement, with the drawback of placing a lot of strain on his eyes and seemingly his brain as well when pushed to its limit. Whether this only applies to those he directly looks at or if it includes people in his peripheral vision, we may never know. And us not knowing this is actually quite important, as I saw a lot of comments saying that Jinichi moved slowly due to being affected by the Paralyzing Gaze. I personally don't think this is the case, as not only are the eyes focusing on Maki, there doesn't seem to be any immobilizing aura around Jinichi whatsoever, as he's not struggling to walk at all, he's just walking slowly. His hair and clothes are also freely flowing in the wind, if that means anything. One interesting idea is that Jinichi was actually waiting for Ranta to either die or go blind due to his curse technique. This way, Ranta would not only be spared from being massacred by Maki, he could also die thinking that Jinichi won and that the rest of the Zenin was safe. This links up with the fact that Jinichi is actually Toji's brother. This means that he knows what Maki can do and how hopeless the situation is, and shows how maybe he at least wanted Ranta to die peacefully, or at least relatively peacefully. That said, there is a lot of evidence that Jinichi cares about Ranta. In the manga, he rushes to help him, and Jinichi only attacks Maki once Ranta tells him not to worry about him, allowing Jinichi to punch the whole area. This all comes together to make a pretty likely explanation that Jinichi, Toji's brother, knew they were absolutely cooked, but he cared about Ranta and so waited until the last possible moment before attacking. That said, I still want to discuss the explanations that don't involve Ranta, only what Jinichi is thinking in this very moment. A very popular idea is the fact that Jinichi is charging up his cursed energy for an all-out attack. Otherwise, how would he unleash this powerful of an attack without any wind-up? There are actually a few answers to this question. First, he's a special grade 1 sorcerer, so maybe he just can. Secondly, his attack here isn't actually as powerful as a lot of people think. You see these massive fists in the sky, but he only managed to destroy the Tower of Rock. Maki's completely fine. Even when he told Jinichi specifically not to worry about him, Ranta succumbed to his own injuries, not Jinichi's attack, and we see that apart from the decapitation, Jinichi's head is completely undamaged. And even though we see his fists hit the estate is largely undamaged, with it still having structural integrity and survivors for Maki to clean up. Therefore, maybe he doesn't need to charge it up, as it's not actually that powerful. I think this is a good example of the anime taking an artistic license, and making the attack look a lot more dramatic and powerful than it actually was. Like a lot of Zenin techniques, it could just be flashy with no real weight behind it. Another one of the most interesting answers that a lot of people came up with was the fact that Jinichi may have made a binding vow in advance, making so that very little damage is done to the surrounding area and forcing Jinichi to bide his time before attacking, with the upside of dealing as much damage to Maki as possible. I gotta say, this is a really creative theory. The point is, there are a few reasons why Jinichi wouldn't have to charge up his cursed energy, which is why I don't think it's very likely. For the final category, I want to talk about Jinichi's feelings. Maybe he's feeling overconfident, like every other Zenin, and still doesn't see Maki as a threat, letting Ranta burn himself out while he shows his dominance. We already know that he's a very serious man, and demands respect from those around him, and he's constantly being put down by Naowa, so this doesn't seem too out of place. There's also the idea that as Toji's older brother, he felt completely crushed, as in this moment, watching Maki solo his entire clan and break Ranta's paralyzing gaze, he realized once and for all that he was inferior to his younger brother. The idea that being inferior to your younger brother is an incredibly shameful thing is something that Naowa has told Jinichi for his entire life, so it's possible that this moment was made even worse by the fact that Naowa was right. Jinichi is pathetic compared to the power of Toji, his younger brother. Lastly, it could be that Jinichi had accepted his fate at this moment. He's made peace with the fact that he's weaker than Maki, weaker than Toji, and weaker than Naowa, so he solemnly walks up to Maki before giving it his all one last time. Because look at him. Look at this man's face. His entire clan's dead. He's got nothing to lose. You can choose whichever of these explanations to believe. I personally like that last one, but I trust that you have enough reading comprehension to make your own decision. And a sign of a well-written story and good world building anyway is the fact that it can allow for open and creative discussion like this. So if you have any other cool ideas, let me know in the comments. Subscribe if you want to see more JJK content from one of the 5 total fans that can actually read.